A flush knee to the face from Gabriel Bonfim knocks Randy Brown out cold. But then he woke up and the referee jumped in, causing some controversy. There's a debate as to whether that was an early stoppage or not. And I don't think so. I mean, look at him. He did wake up and he started to protest after the stoppage, but the fight was done. I think the referee did a great job. The guy was unconscious already, and I don't think we need to see him get knocked out twice in a fight for it to be stopped. I think it was good. I think the referee did a great job. You know, Randy Brown was clearly out cold before he hit the canvas. You could see it in his face. That's the face of a man who's looking into an alternate dimension. The back of his head smacks the canvas and he's corpse guarding. Bonfim approached to finish the fight with ground and pound, and Randy was still not in the position to defend himself. His left arm is to his side. He still looks sort of out of it, and he only started to cover up once the referee stepped in between them. So not only do I think that was a good stoppage, but it was perfect. Referee Mark Smith did an amazing job there, compensating from the near unaliving of Marco Tullio earlier on the card, who ate a super necessary ground and pound shot that was just to be sure he was unconscious, said by Paul Felder, who is the best commentator in my opinion. But the referee completely blundered that one and made sure not to repeat the same mistake for the main event. He stopped it perfectly. I don't think he could have done a better job there. He saved Randy Brown from any unnecessary damage. The damage initially was already excessive. You know, he was literally knocked out. You know, a fighter shouldn't have to get pummeled into an oblivion, entering in a coma or something for a fight to be stopped. And Randy Brown was not going to defend himself in time if, you know, the referee allowed Bonfim to pounce on him, because he stopped Bonfim from throwing ground and pound shots. So it's an amazing win from Gabriel Bonfim, defeating a good fighter in Randy Brown. You could definitely tell that Bonfim has improved since that upset loss to Nicholas Dalby. He's a lot more composed. He's much more tactical compared to that overzealous fighter that he used to be, always looking for a finish at every moment. And you see some of that composure even in the finishing sequence. It's interesting how that actually happened, because there was an earlier exchange that was very similar, but he missed the knee. So Randy Brown, being the longer fighter, he's extending his hand forward, trying to keep distance in between them. And those fingers look too extended forward for comfort. But don't worry, there was an eye poke earlier in the fight. It's not a proper UFC fight without a good old-fashioned eye poke. Randy's entire skill set is usually revolved around holding that distance, and he's very good off the jab, so Bonfim had to find a way on the inside to close in that space. And the pathway was pretty easy. He just slides on the inside and throws a jab. That sudden enclosure seemed to have flustered Randy Brown. It caused disarray, and Randy ducked inward. This was a familiar position for Bonfim. Grabs into the single collar and gets wrist control, knee to the face, knocks him out, perfect finish. And now we rewind to the first round, and it's Randy who initiates the attack. He goes forward, stepping in with the jab, and Bonfim attempts to parry it, which somewhat fails. The jab is still able to follow through, but Bonfim pulls away from the punch and throws that check left hook, which is a staple technique of his. That check left hook has been prevalent throughout his career, but due to both punches missing and Randy closing in space, he ducks into Bonfim and decides to brawl with him. They start trading hooks until Bonfim controls the position with a single collar and throws the knee, which misses. You could tell from the follow through of the knee that if it landed, it would have caused a devastating amount of impact and possibly scoring an earlier knockout, but the precision wasn't there. Randy disengages and resets to a more comfortable position, which is something that he usually does. But most of the fight was highlighted by Bonfim's leg kick, a singular attack that was spammed throughout the fight, just chopping down the base, slowing down the footwork, and also countering the jab, which we'll get to later. He was using the same technique, which lacked variety, but he used it with versatility. He optimized that kick by not only throwing it in the neutral position, the way he did for most of it, but also as a counter as well as on the back foot. He didn't have the same level of variety as Randy Brown's leg kicks, who was throwing inside leg kicks, outside leg kicks, and side kicks to the knee. But variety does not always mean the fighter is better. Efficiency is king, and Bonfim exemplified that with the use of a simple leg kick. The versatility is something to highlight here because, firstly, he's slamming the kicks in neutral, and Randy only defended a few of them. In fact, it's so interesting because before the first leg kick was ever thrown, 2 seconds into the fight, Randy already lifted that knee upward, preparing himself to defend a leg kick before a single one was thrown. So he already knew what Bonfim was going to do in this fight, and still didn't have much defense for it. The main defense that was successful for only a few of them out of what it seemed like dozens that were thrown was that very same technique. He was just lifting his leg above it, causing the kick to miss. This was similar to when Jose Aldo provided the solution to the calf kick for the world to thrive, because man, most fighters are not defending it until Aldo showed them the way. He also checked a few of them, but didn't really phase Bonfim with those. In fact, even when he checked it, it seemed like he took the brunt of the damage. The power of those kicks were quite difficult to handle. He had to evade the kick instead of checking it. Even checking it was causing his stance to get kicked out of position, and it didn't seem like Bonfim was deterred from throwing them. But much respect to Rennie Brown for being so poised, taking those kicks like that, because he never succumbed to them. I thought eventually the fight could have ended because of leg kicks, due to the damage that was inflicted even early in the fight. Rennie had a good poker face. He was still throwing punches, still attacking, still moving at different angles, as much as he could. But it was noticeable that his footwork has slowed down. We could watch his fights with Jack Della Maddalena and Muslim Salikov, and he's a very mobile and quick fighter, but for much of this fight, he was sort of just standing in front of Bonfim due to the leg damage that he was taking. And when Randy decided to attack, the counter leg kicks to that were also devastating. Due to him stepping forward for the jab, it makes the leg more vulnerable to a leg kick. It's more difficult to check a kick in that position, which made that leg kick a natural counter to Randy's jab. Like for an example here, Randy would lift his knee upward, anticipating a leg kick, but due to none of them coming through, he uses that lifted knee as a step forward for his jab. And Bonfim tries to parry the punch, although somewhat unsuccessfully. Randy pumps out another jab and he gets Bonfim to move on the back foot, which usually makes it difficult to commit with leg kicks, but again, Bonfim is quite versatile with that same technique and lands the kick perfectly. Randy slaps him in the face though, so he got something in there at least. But back steps are not always necessary to counter the jab with a leg kick if Bonfim is able to successfully parry the punch. So here Randy steps forward, throws the jab again, but this time gets parried. And notice how Bonfim does not move anywhere. He keeps his position and slams the leg kick perfectly and retracts it in time to pull away from Randy's counter right hand. And this one lands more towards the quad and hamstring due to the way that Randy stepped forward. So Bonfim was not only attacking the calf, he was attacking the outside of the knee, the thigh, the hamstring, and sometimes even the opposite leg inside of the rear leg, which is much more creative and tricky to land because he needs a particular distance and angle for it, right? He can't just throw the kick from long distance the way he usually does to attack the lead leg. For the rear leg, he needs to get closer on his longer opponent, which can be more difficult to pull off. And then he needs to angle himself to the left as well. But he does it, which is crazy. So he begins by throwing feints up top. First the left hand, then he puts the right hand forward, sort of looking like he was going to deflect the lead hand. And then the final feint is a swinging of the left, disguising it as a hook, and Randy defends it as if it was one. So Bonfim is distracting Randy up top from noticing his footwork. Bonfim was stepping while he was throwing feints, and Randy never noticed it. The first two feints were used for a step forward, and then that swinging feint was used to distract him from his slight step to the left, getting that necessary angle. And notice how Randy Brown didn't really move much. This was quite impressive from Bonfim because Randy's a tall and long fighter whose distance management is like a core aspect of his fighting style. He's very comfortable from long range and tries to hold that for much of the fight, but due to all the leg damage, it made it more difficult for him to fight at distance like that, so sometimes he had to close in space and brawl with Bonfim instead of getting his legs kicked out the entire fight. And also by this time, his jab was already like neutralized, but for him to not move away as Bonfim closed in space shows how effective those feints were from distracting him. Look how close Bonfim got when he's throwing that leg kick compared to where they were initially. He slams the kick on the inside of the rear leg, kicking it outward, and tries to capitalize on the unbalanced stance with a left hook again, but Randy was quick enough to flee and reset to a more comfortable range. Other moments are Bonfim intercepting the footwork as Randy's trying to step out to the left with his jab, and not only did the jab get parried, but also the angle was intercepted. Randy tried to attack with body jabs, and that got countered by the leg kick as well, until eventually Bonfim threw up a head kick, possibly from the conditioning of the leg kicks. He anticipated this to land flush, and he nearly did. He just didn't get the proper distance. So he lowered his stance and he starts moving out to his right, and he does not attack until Randy Brown moves forward, essentially like waiting for Randy to fall into a trap that is the right head kick. So he rises up quickly and throws a fake straight right forward to distract Randy Brown from the head kick, and it was successful. You see how Randy opens up his hand ready to parry it, and his guard is not necessarily fortified to block a head kick, so Bonfim breaks the guard and slaps him in the face with his toes instead of the shin. So you see there how the distance wasn't perfect, but the technique and trap that he set for Randy Brown worked very well. If only Randy was closer to Bonfim, that shot could have been devastating. But for other parts of the fight, Bonfim was just parrying the jab and essentially neutralizing it, and that was a very important aspect for his victory, as Randy again is keen on his distance management, and his jab exemplifies that. His jab is probably his best technique out of his entire arsenal. He's very quick with it. He establishes his range and lines up his power shots beautifully off of it. But if that jab is neutralized the way Bonfim just executed, the structure of Randy's skill set pretty much falls apart, and it becomes so much more trivial to handle. Bonfim fought this intelligently and knew to focus his defense on the jab and focus his offense on throwing leg kicks, eliminating Randy's best technique and constantly nerfing him, hindering him with those kicks, causing a knockout to be much more probable. So amazing win from Gabriel Bonfim. He beat a good fighter here in Randy Brown, who I would imagine would be in the top 20 if they ever extended the rankings to that. But Bonfim needs a step up in competition. He called out Colby Covington, and I don't think Colby's going to fight him. I think Gilbert Burns is a more suitable opponent. Unfortunately, he's number 11, and I don't know who else to give Bonfim because Jeff Neal just got knocked out horribly. He is not ready to fight soon. I mean, then again, Bonfim might wait a while to return, but if he doesn't, if he wants to get another fight soon, then I think Gilbert Burns is the opponent for him. It's so unfortunate because Gilbert Burns was just used as a stepping stone against Michael Morales. It's a natural part of the sport, though. The legends and veterans eventually get replaced, and Burns is in the position to be used as a springboard for the next generation. I think that would be the next fight, and I think Bonfim would beat him. If they go with Jeff Neal or something, I think Bonfim beats him too. Bonfim seems to be a future top 10 fighter, so the guy is very good. He's on a 4-fight win streak, which is one of the longest in the welterweight division currently, and I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Make sure to give the video a like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.